Hey guys, it's TechHog. Welcome back to another video. In this video, this is going to be episode 1 of my UI development series. I figured I would make a series going over just some UI development because, I don't know, people said I should and I thought it was a good idea. So anyways, this is episode 1. I'm going to be going over just kind of like the basic structure of how to make a UI and the basic classes and their properties. So first of all, the one thing you need for a UI is a Screen GUI, Screen Graphical User Interface. So this is pretty much what you put all of your objects in to make it actually render on the screen. This can be parented to two places, the player GUI and the core GUI. If it's in any other place, it will not show up on the screen, except for a new V3 thing, but I won't get into that. So then, I don't even know how that works if it isn't even is another parent. But anyways, so the properties here, display order. This just it's kind of like z-index, where the higher the number it is, the like the more it'll go over stuff. So like obviously the chat and some other like default UIs have a high display order, but you can actually put yours above that, so it'll show up above the chat. But if you just keep it at 0, it'll go below. And then there's enabled. So if you put something in here and then you make the GUI enabled or disabled, it'll just toggle showing those elements and interacting with them. Then there's ignore GUI inset. I'll have to demonstrate this in game, but if I put a frame at like the top of the screen here, obviously it looks like it'll be at the top of the screen when I go in the game, but that's not the case because there's a thing called the GUI inset where there's 30 pixels up here that is kind of like set aside for these top buttons. And so you see there's 30 pixels up here. But what you can do is if your GUI has ignored GUI inset, it'll ignore that 30. It'll kind of just subtract 30 from the position. And there you go. It'll put it right at the top of your screen. Next thing is reset on spawn. Usually if you're going to make UI, you're going to want to turn this to false, at least if you're making a script. It does as it says. If you die in game, so you reset your character, then the GUI will reset as well. So if you have it moved to a certain position, or you have like it scrolled, or you just do anything with it, it'll reset back to its original state, which is usually pretty bad. Like if you die in a shooter game, would you imagine having to drag your UI over every single time? This right here is what prevents it. And then there's the index behavior, which I don't get into. Not something I use, and I don't use any of these, so I'm not going to talk about them. Next thing is just kind of some base properties. So frame is pretty much like the most commonly used object, I feel. It's pretty much just a box, and you put other things inside of the box. And the reason why you do this is because if I put another object in here, its position will be based off of this frame. You see this, I don't have to keep updating this position since it's already contained inside of this frame. It's pretty much the way that positions are calculated is if an object is parented to a screen GUI, its position is pretty much just this absolute position, which I'll go over those two in a second. And then if it's parented to another object inside of a screen GUI or something, then its position is the parent position plus whatever the size is, or the position and size are, or just the position, sorry. But so all base objects have these set of base properties: background color 3, background transparency. Some don't have these two, but most do. And then they have position, size, and visible. So position just dictates where it is on the screen. You see, if I add 100 to the offset, it'll go over 100. And then if I were to set this scale to 0.5, it puts its position right here is half of the size of this parent frame. But you see, it's obviously not centered. So in order to make a UI centered, you put the scale on the x position to 0.5, and then the offset to negative, and then whatever your size is, divided by 2. So my size x offset here is 200, which means that here we're going to do negative 100. And that's how to position something in the center. And then you can do the same thing to the y, 0.5, but then this is where the position is, but if you look at the size, it actually extends over a certain amount of pixels, so you gotta, again, set it back to half of your y scale. So that's a little bit about how position works. And then the same thing with size. You can set the size to be an offset value, like 100 or 50. If you do both, it'll make a square. And you can use scale, so you could do offset of 0, and then make this 0.5. Then it's half of the width of the frame. And you see the position is already half, so it's kind of just like the right half of the frame, and this is the left half of the frame. So you can use this mainly for if you want to have like a title. You might want to make the scale 1 and offset 0, so that it's just the same size as the same X size as the frame. Because if you drag this, or you resize your game window, it'll. Well, if you resize your game window, it won't do anything. If your frame doesn't have a scale, if your frame is just offset, then it'll just go by that many pixels. But see, this is an offset. Or it's in scale, so it will size. But then there is the visible, which is self-explanatory. If you turn it off, it makes the UI element invisible. And same thing for all the children, or all the descendants really. If a frame is invisible, then all of its descendants are also invisible, whether or not their visible property is true or not. And then another thing to note is that if you have like a button or something, you can't interact with it if it's invisible, which is really good. Then ZIndex is the same thing with display order. You see, if I have all these different labels here, right? You see obviously some like go on top of each other. Like this one, it's going behind these down here, right? But if I set the ZIndex to like 10, boom, it goes on top of all of them. So pretty much it's just where it's ranked over other objects. Then there's background color 3 and background transparency. Background color 3 is just the background color. You see if I change this, it changes that background color right there. And then transparency, see if I make this like a black and I change the transparency, see it just makes it more transparent, so it pretty much just lightens the color if it's black and darkens it if it's white. And then you can see it just, if I set it to like green, it's just, that's not the base color, it's just semi-transparent. And then there's border color 3, border mode, and border size pixel. I don't use this a whole lot, but it's pretty much just a border. You can set it to whatever color, you can give it a size, and then you can change it to be like middle and set or outline. Usually I'll just set this to 0 because I don't want to have borders. That's pretty much it. Then another thing for all instances of Roblox is the name. Name is very important because if you're going to script, you're going to want to be able to find this in the game. So you see if I can do something like a local text label equals started GUI screen GUI frame text label. If this were to be something like with spaces in it, and you can still access it, you just have to use brackets and quotes. So it's important to name things if you're going to script with them. So give it a good name like title, label, or just title, and then this is like your main frame. That's typically how most things are named with upper camel case, so like every word, the first letter in it is capitalized, and then all the other letters are lowercase. Alright, so that's it for the basic base properties that most objects have. Now I'll go on the text label, well, before I do that, I'll go on the scrolling frame. So there's a frame, but then there's a scrolling frame, which gives you a little scroll bar. You can see down there. And so I'm gonna make this color a little bit different so you can see that there's 2 of them there. Okay, wait. Oh, okay, that's very interesting. I don't like that. But anyways, so there's some properties for the scrolling frame, automatic canvas size, and then there's canvas position and canvas size. So what you'll see is that by default it's set to Y scale of 2. If I can set the offset to like 100 or something, and you see it'll change that little bar right there. Give us 1. Just scroll down a little bit. But if you don't want to do that and you want to use automatic canvas size, I'll show you why you'd want to do that. Because I can use what's called a UI list layout, which are one of the many little like UI helper items. And so what this will do is if I put an object in there and like scale it up, then I create more, it'll automatically position it below. Or if I have it set up where it's like not so wide, and then I go to the, let's see, fill direction, make it horizontal, then it'll move it over to the right. And it'll keep going. So then what you want to use a scrolling frame for is if I have, like if I select all these and make them a bit bigger, then what I can do is I can, if this automatic canvas size is Y, then every time I add an element, it'll add to this canvas size, so you see how it's like perfectly fit down there. So this is pretty much what you want to use for lists. Okay, next thing on the list is just kind of canvas position. It pretty much just shows like where you are, like how you scrolled. There's no size here, so it doesn't work. But if I do this, you see if I scroll down, it'll set the canvas position to whatever this is. Set to 100, it scrolls back up. That's kind of the deal with canvas position. I don't use it too much, but it definitely has its good uses. Then there's some scroll bar stuff. So there's scroll bar image color, so you can set this, because this is an image right here. You can set the bottom image, which is like up here, then the middle image, and then the top image. I don't know why bottom's, I guess it's alphabetical. So this is bottom, obviously, and this is top. I guess I got that confused. Then there's scroll bar image color 3. This just lets you pick the image color. So see, changes the color. Then there's transparency. You can make it fully transparent, which gets rid of it. And you can also make the thickness of it. Change that. Make it 0 if you want to get rid of it too. And then there's a scrolling direction. So if you, let's see, if I make this UI list layout actually a UI grid layout, and you see it puts these in a little grid. Let's make these a little bit bigger so it fits. Oh, you can't do that because UI grid layout have a cell size right here. Oops. Let's just make it 110. See if it'll fit. There you go. Then you can use, let's see if I get some more of these in there. If I make this canvas size X, let's see, XY, that means it'll have this little bottom one where you can scroll left and right, which is kind of hard to see. I'll say is with the UI good layout, it's kind of hard to see. If I make it a list, and these are all just put up and down, so the automatic canvas size doesn't really matter. But you can see how it was showing them to the left, and I could scroll like left and right. It's kind of, you have to have a kind of specific case. I'd have to set this whole frame up differently if I wanted to make it for X instead of just Y. But then there's scrolling enabled, which makes it so right now I'm using my scroll wheel and it won't work. But now if I try, it'll work. Something you can do. Not really sure. I don't use it too much. I don't use a lot of these features too much, but there are definitely cases that you should and can use them. Next is text label and button. They have these text field down here. There's the font. You can change the font face, which is relatively new. Pretty much works the same way. You pick a font, changes the font. Now you can add style, make it italic, make it bold, make it thin, do whatever you want to it. Then there's line height and maximum visible graph themes. I'm pretty sure this is like, it's kind of like how many characters. So if I put like 3, there's only 3 of them. If I put like 10, it'll show up to 10. So now if I make the text longer than 10, it'll cut it off. So you keep it at -1 to make it infinite. And there's line height. If I move it up, you see it'll move that up. I can make a -1. Can I make it negative? No, you can't make it negative. It's default at 1. You can make it go higher than that. I'm assuming that's just like new line height. I don't really know. And then there's rich text, which is a whole separate thing. It lets you use XML to give it like separate parts of the text have separate fonts and separate colors and stuff. You can read about that if you just look it up on the documentation. Then there's obviously the text. This is just a text, nothing to really talk about there. Then there's text color 3, which is the color of the text. See, it'll change the color of the text. And there's text scaled, which this will pretty much increase the size until it's text bounds, which is another property, which is read only. It's a little bit hard to see on the dark mode. But it's pretty much like how far your text extends, like from here to here and from here to here. But then if it's not scaled, it'd be from like here to here and there to there. This is pretty much just like the boundary of the actual text down there. So the text scale just pretty much caps it out until it doesn't overflow. And then there's text size, which you can just use to make it individual sizes if you don't want to make it scaled. And then there's I'm gonna skip to text wrapped, which if I keep it on and I keep adding more text to make it overflow past the boundary, which I'm gonna have to add a lot of text. You see, it'll kind of wrap it right here. Otherwise, it'd just be one big line, but it puts a little new line there. If we make it false, you see, it'll just flow over. So you either want to use text wrapped or text scaled in most cases, especially with user inputted text. Then there's the stroke, which is just pretty much a border. So if I make this white and then make the transparency 0, you see there's a little border on it. You can change it to whatever color you want. Oh, yeah, that's a text stroke. And then you can change the transparency of it too. And then there's text truncate. I don't use this, so I can't really say much about it. You can look up all of these properties and you'll probably get a better explanation of what they do than what I'm doing. So I think you can see it right here. If text goes past, let's see what happens if I set it to, oh, it was already, wait, this is the right thing. Okay, I have no idea what this does. You can look it up. Then there's text X alignment. Oh, that's because it was scaled. Okay, and then if it's not wrapped, now it's just not flowing. Oh, okay, give me a minute. Let's see. Text truncate. Okay, so it doesn't look like it just cuts off text. Oh, and there's a little dot dot dot. Okay, that's what it is. I don't use it a lot, as you can see. But then there's text X alignment. So you see, it's at center. I can move it to the left. Moves the text all the way over there. Which you see, it kind of goes off. So if you're gonna do that, you probably want to have it inside of a parent object, and then just give it a little bit of an offset. Then there's right. Same kind of thing. If it's italics, it'll go off. And there's Y alignment. You move it to the bottom, move it center. Oops. Bottom, top, center, that kind of thing. Alright, then that's pretty much it for the main basic elements and kind of like how everything's positioned and everything works, just the bare basics. Stay tuned for episode 2 where I'll go more in depth on how to create UIs and just some more objects, like there's image button and image label, which I didn't even really show how buttons work. You can obviously click on them, and it has auto button color. See if hover and click. But yeah, that's it for this video, episode 1 of the UI development series. Comment below what I should do in the next episode or in future episodes, and any questions if you have them. Put them in the comments. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.